a priest friend of mine, taking care of him, acting as caretaker, I guess, because he was having a little surgery. And so I was taking care of him and his elderly mother, who was there for the surgery. And throughout that week, it gave us the opportunity to talk about the surgery he was undergoing and how, moments like that, especially when you don't feel old enough to be having procedures or pains or issues, it brings about conversation and thought about our own mortality, about weakness, about death. And it was good that we had that opportunity to talk about those things. And one of the things that both of us acknowledged as a gift in our ministries was the fact that each of us, at some point in our lives, had experienced severe chronic pain, even. Several years ago, I had herniated a lower disc in my back. And it was pressing against the spinal cord. I couldn't even move my leg forward. I couldn't walk without pain. I mean, I was essentially on all fours on the couch because there was no position that I could be in. And had the MRI, had it looked at, and they're telling me I might need surgery to clean it out, to get it so I would be pain-free. I didn't like that, obviously, and I went the other route with steroid injections and therapy, and thankfully, that was enough to get me out of that situation. A few months later, disc in my lower neck, herniated. Yes, kind of a result of the bottom being out of whack, the top went out of whack. My arm, couldn't move my arm, such pain. You just wanted to drive your back into a door jamb or put your arm between the cushions on the couch to feel the pressure. Such pain. Again, injections and therapy. About a year later, the lower back again. Tell you, I felt too young for all of this to be happening. But what I learned, I'm okay now, and I've learned to keep my core strength up, to keep the back in line, and to keep all of those things where they're supposed to be. But I was grateful for having had the experience, because it taught me two things. Number one, when you experience pain or suffering in any kind, it is deeply isolating. You are all alone. Nobody knows what you are experiencing. Nobody knows what you're going through, even if they've gone through something similar themselves. You are the only one feeling what you are feeling. You are the only one who knows what is going on at that time. Secondly, it taught me that when you are in pain like that, nothing else matters. There is only the pain. And focusing on anything else becomes very, very difficult. So whether it's physical pain, or emotional pain, or spiritual pain, or whatever, that pain can be isolating and all-consuming. And it is in the midst of pain that Jesus brings us His healing. This Divine Mercy Sunday is a Sunday dedicated to the healing power that Christ grants us. We celebrate Easter for a full week. So last Sunday we began with the morning gospel of finding the empty tomb and the women going there and wondering what has happened. And throughout the week we celebrate Easter, and today we put the bookend onto that. We're at the evening of that first day, that Sunday. And Jesus appears to His disciples in the upper room, and He greets them with the message of peace, and immediately He establishes the sacrament of reconciliation. I now send you, go and forgive sins. What sins you forgive are forgiven them. You, my apostles, have the power of God, have the power that I have to heal and to make better. And I always thought that was kind of curious that we hear this gospel, we celebrate Divine Mercy Sunday a week after we celebrate Easter. I mean, for goodness sakes, we've just gone from this big penitential season of Lent. We've had time to examine our consciences. Many of us have availed ourselves of the sacrament of confession, and then we celebrate Easter, and we turn right around and we come back to, here is a gospel about the sacrament of confession, essentially. Really? Do we need that? And the answer is yes. Yes, we do. Because we are always in need of healing. We're always in need of forgiveness. And God is not frustrated that we need to ask so many times. In fact, this is why I think we receive this gift on Easter Sunday. Because even though it is a moment of great joy, it is the recognition that the human being is weak, and we will need to come back time and again for forgiveness and for healing. And even though it is a time of celebration and joy and a season of rejoicing, nevertheless, confession is altogether appropriate. Because even Jesus himself delighted in healing people on the Sabbath day, on the day of rest. He wanted to give his people full freedom, full rest, full rejoicing. And so as we hear this in a season of rejoicing, it reminds us how merciful our God is. And he is a God that doesn't look down upon us in that mercy. Because his mercy comes not from pity, or not from looking at us from afar and saying, oh, you poor people, you just can't get it right. His mercy comes from the experience of suffering. We heard during Holy Week how Jesus himself learned obedience through what he suffered. It was through suffering that Jesus gained a particular awareness of what we individually go through in our pain and in our woundedness. And he entered right into that. And so he now uses that suffering, that passion, to bring us his compassion, to bring us the gift of his mercy, the gift of forgiveness. And so we see Jesus appearing to his disciples, and Thomas is not there. Thomas is absent for whatever reason that first Easter Sunday evening. And imagine when Thomas comes back and the other disciples say, "We have seen the Lord. He's risen." We hear Thomas say, "I will not believe him." And those of us who are outside of Thomas's life, those of us who aren't going through what Thomas is going through, can be sort of judgmental. And we call him a doubter, doubting Thomas. But we're not experiencing what he's experiencing. Imagine Thomas is being told by all of the other disciples, "We have seen the Lord. You haven't." Thomas may be hurt by that. Thomas doesn't have the same assurance of the resurrection that the other disciples do. Thomas may be dealing with his own guilt of abandoning Christ on the cross, as all of the other disciples, save John, did. And Thomas now has to face this. There could be great woundedness, and there could be great brokenness in that experience. And so he says, I can't believe it. Because when we are wounded and hurt, we close down so that we cannot be hurt further. So when Jesus appears the next day, the next week, what does he do? He goes right to Thomas. And he doesn't chastise him for lack of faith. But he says, "Thomas, you are wounded. So let me show you my wounds. Thomas, you're hurt. So let me show you where I've been." And it's in that exchange of wounds that Thomas is healed and is able to recognize the resurrection. Jesus knows that in order for us to be healed, we cannot stand before someone who tells us, "You're doing it wrong. You have to try harder. You need to practice more." We are healed when we stand before someone who says, "I know what you're going through. I've been there too. I also struggle. I also am wounded. I also wrestle with these things." And that's the beauty of confession. Because we confess not to someone perfect, but to some broken sinner just like ourselves in the person of the priest. So he knows. We don't have to explain ourselves. He knows. I know that we fall, that we are wounded, and that we need to keep asking for forgiveness. That's why God's mercy is so profound. And that's why I am grateful for having had the experience of great pain in my life. Because it reminds me to be compassionate, to be gentle, and to be kind when people deal with weakness. We become impatient when we forget that we too are weak and broken and need to work with people. That is a great gift to us. And I don't know if it's just a guy thing, but I am immensely proud of my wounds and my scars. I love my scars and showing them off. Here, right here above my left eye is a scar when I was a kid riding my tricycle around the kitchen, down the steps to the basement. Scar. Here's a scar on the top of my head that you can't see. My 5th birthday, ran behind the swing set, got hit by the swing, dragged under, scar. Here's a scar on my chest, my first chicken pox, didn't know what it was, scratched it wide open, scar. Here's some scars on my hand in several places where I put the hand through the basement window when I was trying to close it, scars. Scars. These scars are left here. Every one of us may have a scar or a wound or something. And we might be embarrassed of them, or we'll try to hide them or cover them. But you know what? These scars are a sign of victory. I went through something, and I came out. I went through something, and I'm okay now. And that's why Jesus shows us the wounds, because it's a sign not of weakness, but of victory. I have wounds, but I am alive. We have wounds, but we are alive because of Jesus' divine mercy. So we are reminded in our woundedness to be compassionate with one another, to be gentle and kind, because we are all wounded on this journey. And when we reach out and touch the wounds of the Savior and let Him touch our wounds, we're able then in compassion to touch one another's wounds and through God's gracious mercy to bring divine healing.